Ohio high school football. It's a juggernaut each and every week. I'm going to take you on an inside look at the high school coaching world. In the world of high school coaching, there is far more than what people see after 7 p.m. on a Friday night. This is the Coach's Approach.
Welcome to the Coach's Approach, a podcast where we sit down with high school coaches and get the cold, hard facts about the high school coaching world. This is the Coach's Approach, where we talk X's and O's. Follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. This is the Coach's Approach, where we talk the X's and O's. Win the day or dominate the day. The choice is yours.
All right. In today's episode of the Coach's Approach podcast, episode 1, Ballin with Butchko, I'm sitting down in the coach's booth with Coach Jon Butchko. John, welcome. Happy for you to be here.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be the guinea pig.
Yeah, first one. It's going to be an exciting episode. Hopefully we get a bunch of listeners. Before we hop right into the interview, I need to go through shout out my sponsors. First one is Anthony's Family Restaurant in Eastlake, right on the corner of 91 and Vine Street, where together is our favorite place to be. Dine-in and carry-out and curbside pickup. Also, G&G Printing. Get your custom apparel finished in 7 to 10 days or less. Dominate your design. Also, I need to give a shout out to Pastor Will Rice from Fiverr website for the incredible job he did in our intro and outro music. All right, so we're going to hop right into things, John. Once again, welcome. Glad that you could be here. So we're going to start with your coaching days while at Sandy Valley, coaching the Cardinals. You were there from 2014 to 2017. Tell us a little bit how you got to Sandy Valley.
Well, ironically, as I was leaving Central Catholic, it looked like I was heading towards another job. And I went to a family, 50th wedding anniversary, and their superintendent was there, and we kind of reconnected. He was a Central Catholic graduate, and we just started to talk a little bit about where things were going. And I knew a couple of guys on the staff, and at the very last minute, the original job didn't materialize, and they came right back to me and said, we have this opening, you can coach football here, we'd like you to coach some other sports. And it was really awesome. It was really a great community to be at. It's kind of our adoptive home when we go back down to the Stark County area. A really special 4 years I spent down there. The guy that's the head coach there now, Brian Gamble, and I actually worked together during the summer. All throughout the college years, we would train together, and we played against each other in high school. So he was really a big in to help me get in there, heading into that 2014 season.
Okay. Yeah, and that's kind of a good thing about coaching. You set that networking up, and you kind of, you build relationships that way, and that's kind of how we met through the coaching world. So you were at Sandy Valley for 3 seasons, 2014, 2015, and 2016.
And 2017 as well.
Oh, in 2017 also, yeah. Okay. So you were there for 3 seasons.
4, yeah, before.
Or 4 seasons,
yes.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I have 3 seasons that I kind of targeted more. 2014, you went 5-5. 2015, 10-2. 2016, 8-3. Over those 3 seasons, you went 23-10 over that 3-year span. Making a playoff run for the first time in school history in 2015. That must have been pretty special. What was so special about that team?
Well, I think it really, even if you look back to 2014, it started, a lot of those players that contributed on the 2015 team saw action in 2014. But that group, from probably the first time we gathered for off-season conditioning, they just worked insanely hard. They were a competitive group. We had probably the best 3-way player I've ever been around with Jacob Wagner. He probably should have been the player of the year offensively. 1,700 or so receiving yards. He had 8 interceptions in the secondary, and he was one of the better high school kickers I've ever been around. And we embraced, what was our new identity. We were going to go up tempo. We were going to throw the football a little bit more than we had in the past. And it took about 3 practices. It was before we ever got into pads. We had guys laying out for the ball and then getting right back and lined up. And they really embraced everything we asked them to do, heading into that 2015 season. And our quarterback, Nelson Mosden, He had an outstanding season, starting off in the first game with nearly 400 yards through the air. And
can't beat that. You love that stuff as a quarterback. It makes it easier as a coach,
Oh, without a doubt. And we used to rib him a little bit. I'd say, great quarterbacks go 8 for 10 against air, or great quarterbacks, in Skelly, they go through the period without missing. And Nelson was a competitive guy. He played quarterback. He played point guard on the basketball team. He was a pitcher and a shortstop on the baseball team. So he was, one of those
and you love those type of athletes, guys that are competing year round. They're in your community. They're playing basketball, baseball. They're doing all the things you want for them, and those are the guys that you win with at the end of the day.
Oh, absolutely. And he was a tremendous leader. Now our relationship has graduated to more of a friendship, and whatever sport he was involved in, he was the one that the guys were attracted to, and I think we really went as he went. Even though we had some guys with huge statistical years.
Absolutely. Before we move on, anything you want to say to the people down in Magnolia, Ohio? Any shout outs you want to give out?
Well, I'd like to say hi to both Brian Gamble and Zach Gardner, the 2 head coaches I worked for down there. All the players. We'd be here all day if I tried to mention them. But our superintendent Dave Fisher, Principal Matt Whitted. The athletic directors then, Gary Hinton, and now Garth Evans, how's everybody doing? And, I certainly look back on my years at Sandy Valley with a lot of fondness. I really do. And that's, like I said, it's become kind of our adoptive home, when my daughter and I returned to the area.
That's awesome. That's kind of like when I was at Canton around a great coaching staff. It kind of brought me up through the coaching ranks, and I was so appreciative of those guys. Learned a ton of football before I got into interviewing for head coaching jobs, so I'm very appreciative, same as you are to Sandy Valley. Now we'll head over to you being an assistant coach at Canton Central Catholic, home of the Crusaders, also home of Jon Butchko. How awesome was it to coach at your alma mater? You graduated in 2000, and 5 years later you were back. How cool was that for you?
It was really great, and right before the 2004 season, when I had one more year left in college, I worked with them during the camp part of the summer, and working with Coach Kleinfelder, Coach Linda Smith, Coach Miller, 3 absolute coaching legends. I think when I reported to camp for my 5th year, for my senior year, I knew what I wanted to do and probably where I'd like to do it, when my playing days were done. And, it worked out that I was able to get my first, assistant coaching stop was at Central Catholic. And I learned, I don't know if you could put together a college course of better teachers.
Sure.
Doug Miller's won 700 baseball games. Coach Kleinfelder somewhere in the top 20 with 252 career wins and 2 state titles, and Coach Linda Smith, who was a wonderful defensive coordinator for 30 years. I think he won his first 3 seasons, and all 3 of them ended in the state championship at Ohio Stadium. So I really learned a lot.
I think I have that stat for you actually. Went to 3 straight state title games and won one of them. That's a hell of a span. 3 straight years, That's pretty cool.
Oh, it was really cool, and Coach Linda Smith, or everybody knows him as Trucker. He was a tremendous influence on my life, and I couldn't have been happier. In 2016 to win it the way that they did, thrilling fashion. I think it was a 92-yard drive to beat Coldwater, who it seems like they print the state championship game on their schedule every year, and they had beaten us 2 years in a row. To finally slay that beast in the way that they did, I couldn't have been happier for somebody that's been a great friend, mentor, colleague, at all the different stops in our lives.
Sure. And now, what position did you coach while you were at Canton Central Catholic?
My first year I coached wide receivers in the secondary, and then when I came back, the first year I was back there in 2012, I coached running backs and then the secondary, and then I moved back to the outside as we went more spread.
Sure.
There was only one running back on there in many of our formations, so I went back to the wide receivers in the secondary. Did a lot with our hurry up, no huddle that we wanted to try. Started putting the wristbands together. That was one of my big responsibilities, and then worked with developing the younger guys who ended up playing at Ohio Stadium 3 times in a row. So I felt a really really good connection to that group of my fellow alums that got to have some real unique experiences.
Sure. And then in your first season as assistant at CCC, you went 9-4 with a playoff run. In 2005, or that was in 2005, and then you leave after that one season. What kind of led to your departure after the first year?
Well, I went to what is now closed Timken High School. I was trying to get into public education. I needed a teaching job.
Absolutely.
It was never a falling out with the football program that I dearly love to this day. It became some opportunities were opening up at Canton City Schools, which I joined on their coaching staff with Nate DeGasper, who I went to college with, and we ended up taking the Marion Mayhem job. And so we really left the area. I mean, we planned to leave the area during that 2006 season and eventually did by 2007. So it was really just a form of going to Canton Timken. And again, that school is now closed, so there's not really anybody to talk to down there.
Sure.
But that was a step to try to get into public education.
Okay. And then after a few years, you eventually come back to CCC. You were back for 2 more seasons, 2012 and 2013. What made you want to come back home again? You were there one time. It was kind of cool coming back. What made you go back?
Well, I think it was more just everything else. My daughter was born, and I wanted to bring her up around my family. The goal was to have her attend Central Catholic, and life's plan kind of changed from there. But to be back for Coach Kleinfelder's final 2 years, to probably put myself on a track to become a head coach again, which had always been the goal. And you know that. I mean, coaching football is great no matter where you do it, but you always want to see how it is when you're the head coach. You're the guy making the decisions.
Absolutely.
And I really got humbled in my first 3 years as a head coach. We weren't very good, and some things that maybe were manageable didn't get done, and I came back to relearn, to rework my way back up the ladder.
Absolutely, and that must be a cool experience coaching your alma mater. I graduated from Eastlake North, and I still think that's one of my dream jobs. I kind of eventually want to go back there and coach, because you know the area, you know the people, now the kids that were watching me when I was in high school, they're in high school. I'm like, it's just a cool situation to always go back. And you kind of mentioned a little bit, you were around some great coaches at CCC. What can you tell me about those coaches? I know you mentioned a little bit. If you want to hit on that one more time.
Well, we have 3 of them that really stand out. Not that the rest of them are slouches, but 3 that I think much of the coaching community knows. Coach Lowell Kleinfelder, the head coach, he was there for 41 years, brought 2 state titles to the school, just a consummate professional, one of the greatest influences on my life. Having played for him, having watched as a ball boy when I was young, played for him, and then, had a chance to go represent the school when I was playing in college, and then work with him, and just saw the attention to detail that he paid to everything. He was always prepared, always looking to improve, and the other side of that coin, right in the same coach's office, would be Doug Miller, now at East Canton, but had won 700 games as a baseball coach and 3 state titles on the baseball
team.
And the way he interacted with his players, certainly the consistency that he showed throughout his program, the baseball program, and then Trucker was kind of a combination of the 2. He worked in both programs for a long time, and he was very helpful throughout my life as a student, as an athlete, and then as a professional. And he's a little bit different in his delivery than Coach Kleinfelder was. Not that anyone is better or worse than the other, but just different. He was very relatable. He was, the one that a lot of players confided in, talked to, looked for advice. So I tried to take the best of those 3 that I watched work every day, from different perspectives in my life, and apply it to what I would eventually do for a living, and try to do it at the highest level possible.
Absolutely. Now, before I move on, again, I want to give you an opportunity. You kind of gave a few shout-outs already, but any more shout-outs to down your alma mater, down in CCC?
I think the only one I haven't mentioned yet is the guy that I coach with that I actually used to babysit Bo Smith. So, Bo, how are you? That's really a unique situation, and I think probably what the school always, talks about the family atmosphere. I mean, I babysat him when I played there, and then we ended up coaching together and have remained friends since.
That's awesome. Stuff like that. That's the best thing about high school sports, in my opinion, is the relationships you build through kids, coaches, even administration. You teachers. That's the good stuff to me. Now we're going to move on to your stint at Ridgedale. I'm not going to hit a lot on this because I know it was a little difficult situation. You were the head coach for the Ridgedale Rockets for 3 seasons. Over that time, your win-loss record was 5-25. Before you got hired, you kind of knew what you were walking into. You mentioned me before that you walked into an awful situation. Can you kind of hit on that and what kind of happened while at Ridgedale?
Well, prior to me getting hired, in February they had hired a different coach, and by June he had resigned and left to take another job in the area. So it was a quick turnaround. I got hired after Father's Day.
No, listen, when I got hired over at Cardinal, I got hired on super late, and to get a staff in less than 2 months before your June camp, that's already a difficult situation.
Oh, without a doubt. And you know, the program had been down a little bit in the recent past. They had some playoff runs in the early 2000s, but they fought numbers, and they fought just an insane schedule. There were 6 divisions then. We were the only Division 6 in the conference. We had a Division 3, I think 4 Division 4s and 5 Division 5s, and we were, you know, they're now in Division 7, so they were really in that lower part of Division 6. Wow. So, you know, people would wear us out sometimes. If you look, we had, you know, several losses in a 1-possession game or an overtime game or a 3 overtime game. And, you know, I know you talked with Mike Marshall, who I coached against in that stop, and you know, his program, you know, Buckeye Valley, a Division 3 school, they were the biggest school in the conference, and there were times they would just wear us down, just beat us up and wear us down. So we really focused on getting competitive, and I think that became, you know, the inspiration and the confidence to do some of the things, you know, that I've since, you know, made a part of how I coach. You know, not having the resources of everybody else, you have to get pretty inventive pretty fast.
Yeah, absolutely, especially getting hired on so late. You getting a staff together had to be hard. I know what it was like. You know, most everyone's on a staff during that time where you get hired on. You said after Father's Day. I'm like, that's a short time to get a staff together, just a playbook together, just little things to get together before June. But yeah, I didn't want to spend a lot of time. I just kind of wanted to ask that one little question. Moving on to Edgewood, okay. You were at Edgewood for 3 seasons. You were named head coach of the Warriors in January of 2018, and that's kind of how we got to know one another. Scrimmaged against each other for 2 years. Before you arrived at Edgewood, in the 3 seasons prior, the football program was 6-24 in the win-loss column. You knew the program was in a build-up stage, and you knew what you were getting yourself into. It needed a lot of work. What things needed fixed upon your arrival at Edgewood?
Well, I think the very first thing that we needed to do was start to work, just focus on ourselves and competing. You know, when I watched the film and I saw the film, you know, prior to getting the job, and I thought they had the pieces and parts to be competitive, you know, with the schedule that they played then. But at times they would just, in the second half, they would just, you know, get beaten. The other team would separate from them. So we made it a big buzzword around the building, around the team, to just compete. We changed the way we prepared. We went a little bit more analytical, a lot more, you know, heady stuff. You know, the preparation things I touched on, you know, from my time at CCC and at Sandy Valley. We prepared very similar to those teams did. And then, you know, it's always a little bit easier, I think, to accelerate that curve when you're a little more spread out offensively. So we've really focused on that. Go a little bit faster, throw the football a little bit more, and we had some good success in my 3 years of throwing the ball there and putting up some very good numbers at times. And so those were the things that we really focused on early. You know, as we got there and going from year 1 to year 2, and then, you know, year 2 to year 3, we had a tremendous amount of momentum. Until the coronavirus lockdowns, I think, messed everybody up. And
you're telling me, man, that was a crazy time to coach. And what a time to be in your 3rd year as a head coach. I mean, but mine was going into my 2nd year. So, like, dealing with coronavirus, I'm like, I don't even know what to, you know, it blew everyone's mind in the coach world. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask. Wear them on sidelines. How you wear them with your, you know, it blew everyone's mind. It was, to be a 2nd year, 3rd year head coach when you're in a rebuild. Now you're focusing on little things like COVID. Well, not little things, but focusing on things like COVID on the sidelines. It really, you start thinking away from the football side of things. It distracts you.
Well, yeah, and the most unfortunate part of that was right at the beginning, because we had a great, you know, group of veteran players going into their junior and senior season that were dragging the younger guys with them. You know, had the weight room open at 6 o'clock for our multi-sport guys. We had very good attendance. We had very good participation in our off-season program. And just overnight, you know, you had to stop it.
Yep.
You know, we all saw the videos on social media of guys doing different workouts at their home because there was nowhere to go. And then when you get back together, I mean, all the directives we got from the OHSA, all the directives we got from the Football Coaches Association, 9 guys at a time, and, you know, practice for 10
minutes. Those were long days, weren't they? You were at that school for 8 hours, hour groups, hour pods of 8 kids to get 40 guys through. You're there all day.
Oh, there was some very long days and some very confusing days, and you know, I'm pleased to see, you know, the world is going back to making football more like it's supposed to be. Like, who on the sidelines is going to wear a mask? Well, that's a third receiver over there. He has to go into the game quickly. Should he have a mask on under his helmet? And, you know, the cones, or we use the hula hoops or the sprayed dots that everybody did. And, you know, hey, those guys got to follow you because they got to go in and out in that free substitution.
Speaking of dots, you know, I bought blue dots for kids to stand on the sideline. And I can't tell you how many of those blue dots vanished. They just vanished in the thin air, you know.
Took a COVID souvenir home with them.
Absolutely.
And then going into year 3, you know, which was the schedule changed. I bet 100 times. You know, we were a member of the CVC, and then, you know, some schools that were members, you know, their county was showing a color, and so they started later. People would ask, well, what's the schedule look like? I didn't even know which ideation to look at, but, you know, we did get to participate in a playoff game at CVCA. You know, we did get to play, you know, many of our local rivals, and I thought in odd situations, you know, completely weird situations, you know, we didn't really lose any time of extended time and miss any games. But I thought, you know, our administration and our leadership did as good a job as you could do, given what a situation that I don't think anybody thought could ever exist.
Sure. And that season was so strange because usually you get all your pregame for the following week done on Saturday. Sometimes we didn't get stuff done until more than likely Sunday night or Monday even, because you did not know who you were playing possibly till Monday morning or Sunday night, you know, or Tuesday. It happened to us on Tuesday sometimes, you know. I think there was a game played last season where they didn't find out till Thursday, had no film, they just go out and play. It was like backyard football on a Friday night, no film preparation at all.
Well, I think we saw Harvey picked one up on a Friday at like 2 o'clock.
Yep.
You know, they were a team in our conference. You know, we both were in the CBC in different tiers, but I think they picked somebody up on a Friday, loaded the bus, and went and played there. And that was.
Now, was that the game? Like, I might be out in Sandusky. Maybe that's the game I'm thinking of. Maybe not.
I don't remember who they played.
There was one that traveled like 3 hours. They booked on Thursday and traveled 3 hours the next day just to play a Friday night game. I'm like, that's kind of crazy preparation. I couldn't imagine ADs, phones ringing. You know, it must have been a wild time.
Oh, it was. It was wild, and I'm sure, you know, a different kind of wild. For if you talk to 50 different coaches, you'd have 50 different types of wild, because, you know, even county to county was so different.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, you had some that were very relaxed, some that were very strict, and, you know, all the whole big thing. A quick example of that was, you know, no locker rooms. Nobody's going in the locker room. And we get over to our scrimmage opponent in a different county, and they're like, hey, the locker room's open for you.
Exactly.
You know? So you never know what to expect.
And speaking of this, while we're on the subject, I was really looking forward to Kirtland was going to go play over in PA against Tigers alma mater. I was kind of looking forward to that game, but then it didn't happen because COVID. So I just kind of wanted to mention that. Kind of back to the script. This might be a little funny question. I saw in one of the videos when I was kind of researching you up, what is the apple tradition? I had to ask. I had to.
That was the thing from Central Catholic. I don't even know if it was true, but by the time, you know, I started playing there in 1997, they would always have an apple at every meal, and like if you didn't at least take a bite out of it, the older players would tell you, you know, it's for good luck. So that's one way to nod to the place I came from, that we did that at every meal, and people there really embraced it. And I think, you know, the video that you saw from week 2 of my first year was the first time.
We're gonna get into that too. Don't worry.
It was the first time that you know, we made a concerted effort to have them at our meal, and you know, it never really was a crazy insistence, but they knew that I felt more comfortable when that happened.
Sure.
So they did whatever they could to put my mind at ease, you know, a couple hours before the game.
Sure. Now, I'm going to show you a picture. I kind of want you to tell me how special this moment was for you. I'm going to flip my laptop over in a second. I'll go ahead and show you now. And I just kind of want you to tell me how special of a moment that was. And I'll post this to our viewers later on. But how special of a moment was that for you after your rival beating Ashtabula Jefferson 14-8. Like, how special of a moment was that for you?
Well, that was very special. I mean, if you look on the right, the picture, both my grandparents are there. My grandfather's now deceased. He died in March that just passed.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
That's thank you. And my family had just gotten here. My daughter, and I was married then, had just gotten here, and they'd probably only been here like 10 days, and they had a trophy presentation. And if you look at my daughter who's holding the trophy, we won the Air Force game of the week. We beat Jefferson, and they handed out a traveling trophy. And she never really wanted too much to do with her dad, but if they were handing us a trophy, she liked to get her picture taken with it. So that was a very special family moment. It certainly was. And, leading up to that game and really winning it the way that we did, we had no idea there was a Hoadley Cup. It had been 10 years since Edgewood had possessed it, and it was no talk. Like, I wasn't from the area, so I didn't have any idea of the traditions of the area, and I don't know if our odds were long, or we had just forgot or just overlooked that I didn't know. But they come over and hand us the trophy, and I said, what's this? And then it really took on a life of its own, and we were happy to have won it all 3 years I was there.
Sure. You get your first win over Ashtabula Jefferson, your rival. You win 14-8. You pull it off late in the fourth quarter. I saw the play. It's in the video that I kind of watched. Take me through the play that pretty much sealed the deal for the win over Jefferson, and for your first win as a coach at Ashtabula Edgewood. Sorry.
Well, we had gotten a turnover with just about 2 minutes ago in the fourth quarter, and we hit a single vertical away from three receivers.
You remember the play call?
Oh, yeah.
I want to hear the whole thing, Coach.
It would have been Ron plus. It would have been Ron plus Bob go red, and we had Isaiah back there who was just a freshman and ended up being a really great player for us. We had a big game, probably a 30-yarder to start the drive. We popped the inside zone through and got down to the 12-yard line, and then with about 12 seconds to go, we wasted our last time out, and we threw the fade to the back corner, and he caught it, kept his foot down, and his butt knocked the pylon down, and there was 6 seconds to go, and the game was over. So it was good. We thought we would get that play all week,
Sure.
and we missed it, I bet 5 or 6 times throughout the first 3.5 quarters.
Don't you hate that?
And we got it twice.
Don't you hate that? You should have had like 40 points off the same play, and then it finally works.
That's right. We like to look away from trips, and we finally connected. And
quarterback loves those one-on-one matches.
Oh, he's got to.
You better make that throw.
That's right, and he's got to. And a great throw by Alec Canton and a great catch by Isaiah Harris, and that was a good first win. It was really thrilling, and it was a good way to, I think, reverse some bad luck against the opponent we hadn't, the school hadn't fared very well against for since those seniors were in the second grade.
Sure. And then I watched the play. I think you were on the 14, around the 14 and the 20. I couldn't really tell based off the video I watched. Throw a vertical route for the game-sealing touchdown, and there was a coaches meeting. What do you think? Was he in?
I thought he was in. I thought the foot was down, and I really never doubted it. Like, I don't know if it's because I played that position or I wanted the truth to be the way that it was, or some combination of it, but I thought I saw a foot down, and then he fell onto the pylon, which was out of bounds in the end zone. So
what an athletic catch too. I watched it. I think he was in too, but man, what an ending to win your first game. What a catch, what a throw. You always teach that 4x4 box in the back corner, and man,
he dropped it right in there, and that kid was 14 years old, his first career touchdown, and I mean that was a heck of a way to go, and build some momentum, and build some things for the future, and really became a staple of what we did during my time there. So
sure. Get to the rivalry trophy that you mentioned. What was the name of that?
That was the Hoadley Cup, or the Hoadley Trophy.
Okay, and then so Ashtabula Jefferson had that 10 years prior. How cool was that? And you didn't even know there was a trophy because it's been gone for so long. How cool was it to bring it back to Edgewood and never losing it in your coaching tenure at Edgewood?
Well, it was definitely a point of emphasis. You want to beat your rivals. You want to beat the local opponents, and all of them except for Conneaut we got at least once. The people that are considered to be rivals to the school. We got Lakeside once, we got Jefferson 3 times, and the only one that escaped us was Conneaut. But it was very neat to bring it back. It was really a fun night of watching some of our veteran players who I was just still getting acclimated to. Celebrate with the trophy, take their pictures with it. I think they probably spent a lot of time in the locker room that night gathering around it. And we wanted them to enjoy it. We wanted them to embrace it. And certainly, as well as I do, I can think back to when I played against St. Thomas. Lance went back and forth, and I'm sure Eastlake North had a rivalry and a special traditions that go with it.
Yeah, I'm not going to bring up the rivalry with South because when I played, there was a guy named Cream Hunt that ran for quite a bit of yards that season, and quite a bit of yards during a mudstorm game against us. So
we had film of Kareem in high school.
Oh.
He was very special. We watched him run the opening kickoff back before anybody crossed the 40-yard line. So I remember what a monster he was coming through Willoughby South.
I could have thrown for 500 yards, and guess what? He was going to run for 608 touchdowns, so it didn't matter, So as a man-child. I'm going to get into your 4th off-season going into Edgewood. During that off-season, unfortunately, you were arrested for domestic violence, but the case was eventually dismissed. Anything you want to bring to light about what happened and how the case got dismissed?
Well, I think that ultimately the dismissal of it was just a result of the facts of my situation. It was a very unfortunate, I think from the very first time anybody ever asked me publicly about it, a personally embarrassing situation, and it was. That's in no way anything that I ever want my name or my family attached to. It was a very unfortunate situation, one completely out of my control, and I think what separates that alleged crime from other alleged crimes is, if you were talking about a murder, well, is there somebody dead as a result of this? Or a robbery, has something been taken as a result of this? And, the way the statute's written, and it's written that way for a good reason, there's a lot of, ugly things that go on in the world, and, some of them take place at home. I was put into a position where I had to reactively defend myself, and that's the only way you can defend yourself in such a situation. And my attorney, my criminal defense attorney, and my professional attorney did a great job of trying to bring the facts to light, and it's unfortunate that I think somebody that maybe has only met me in passing, or somebody that maybe only knows me a little bit, would take the person they see on the sideline who gets excited, or a person that tells jokes and hopefully never crude or demeaning, but would form some kind of opinion based off of something like that. And that's really the most disappointing part, and the part that I'm eager each and every day to work through.
Sure. Then Ohio Department of Education wanted to get involved and do their own investigation. Whatever happened with that? I know we mentioned that there wasn't much, but I just kind of want you to mention what kind of happened with that.
Well, there's a concept with them, that as your fingerprints, for any of a list of things are taken, it automatically alerts them in Columbus. So I don't think that was anybody's fault. That's just how the system is run. And I never have spoken with them. I have never had a word with them, and I got a letter probably about 2 months ago that said the matter is closed, and there's no disciplinary action being taken. And that was a big sigh of relief. The legal part is one part. Your employment part's another part, and then your licensure part's a third part. And I think you have to couple with that a fourth part that applies in my situation, that I'm a single parent. And so there were people that wanted to take a look at my treatment of my daughter, who I have custody of. And, I was 4 for 4, which, is as fortunate as you can be, and completely unfortunate circumstances. And one that I think, if I hadn't, had some of the leadership in my life that I've had, and the people I could depend on, and I mean, even you and I talked candidly during that time, the great friends and many in this coaching fraternity that you alluded to before have been invaluable resources. I probably wouldn't, be in the position I am today to look to take this negative, that found its way into my life and turned it into a positive. And the unfortunate parts of all of that, are over, and all I can do is continue to work hard and put that matter as far behind me as I can.
Sure. Ultimately, though, a crime that you didn't commit led to your departure from Edgewood. Is there anything you would like to say to the community of Edgewood that you never got a chance to? I know I'm not sure if you ever got to talk to them after the fact, but this is a time to, if you want to, that's up to you.
Well, I still work in the school, so people have come up to me and offered their support and have been great. And certainly I'm sorry that anything associated with my name brought disreputation to the school, and definitely I look back on those years as a great time in my life. Another shot to be a head coach, a place that's embraced myself and my daughter. She's still a student in our schools there. So and again, it's currently where I work. So I think I hope that when people interact with me now going forward, especially in the immediate aftermath of this, Christmas Day will be 6 months, that I'm taking what could be a very very applicable lesson to a lot of people, that this bad stuff can kind of find you, and you can believe that stuff. You can stop working very hard and stop working on yourself, or you can pick it up where it lies and continue to improve. And I hope the impression of those that talk to me or observe me or are around me is that I've taken what is really a tough situation and made it better. And I know not everybody is okay with that, and there's probably an assumption of if there's smoke, there's fire. But all I can do is continue to be the person that I was before, and have been since, and try to continue to improve and interact with and improve the lives of those that I interact with daily.
No, absolutely. I think you knocked that right on the head. Going into some of your accomplishments and highlights in your coaching and teaching career, you have been coaching for 15 years and counting. You were 2021 Educator of the Month for Northwest Banks. You were featured on Fox 8 for their Salute to Teachers. You were a recipient of the Osho State Award. You've hosted multiple coaching clinics throughout Northeast Ohio. You've coached 9 first-team All-Ohioans, which is great. That's an honor in itself. Do you want to I don't know if I missed anything. Is there anything that I've missed that you kind of want to talk about, or anything in your coaching career, teaching career?
First of all, those individual awards are great. Those 3 that you mentioned, the Financial Educator of the Month, I know the Fox 8 thing is more of a spotlight than an award, and the OHSAA award, those all came in a brief 3-month period, which culminated with the legal situation we just talked about. So it was really a whirlwind time. But certainly I'd never been recognized in the classroom before. I hope that anywhere I've been, I've continued to get better each and every day and every year from there. So it's great to be recognized for those things, but I think the people around you benefiting from them. The Financial Educator of the Month, we got to make a donation to a less privileged school in our class's name, and that was really neat. And to be recognized by the OHSAA was absolutely amazing. And the Fox 8 thing, I had no idea how many people saw it, and there were people from all stops in my life, so that was amazing. And the first team All-Ohioans that I've had, and all the players maybe that didn't receive accolades to that level, the relationships are what you remember. There's great players, there's tremendous students, there's people that go on to do great things after they're done playing, but certainly I can think back to each of them individually and some of the interactions they've had with me, or interactions with my children that they've had, or a special moment that we've shared. And that's really the great things during my time. And in those 15 seasons, one of the coolest things I think I ever did was spent 3 years in what's the AA, like the equivalent of AA baseball in the arena game.
Sure.
And our quarterback played at Ohio State, and he was very
that's
very
awesome. And again, great networking right there. This guy you probably still talk to today.
Oh, absolutely. When he's not busy being on 97.1 hosting the show or anything like that. But it was great to coach some of the see some of the things in professional sports, and I saw them very early. And I think there's a perception, when you watch the Browns, and I know our levels are somewhat different with the amount of money they made, but when you watch professional sports and when you watch amateur sports, there's some serious differences that I think seeing them before my 25th birthday really opened my eyes to a lot of things, and I think pushed me to my home in high school sports. In amateur sports, there's a lot of a lot of things that aren't very fun. Yeah, you get to play in front of a lot of people, and the arena's cool and all
Sure.
that. But there's a lot of things that aren't very fun, and it's not quite what you think it would be.
Right.
And that was a good experience. I mean, I'm thankful forever. I got to have some, really neat memories. D'Lo Brown put me in a headlock. He
There
owned
you
the
go,
team in
yeah.
the league, so
Oh, yeah.
we had a picture of that floating around for a
D'Lo
while.
Brown, the good old, D'Lo.
Steve
Heck
McMichael.
I'm a big wrestling fan. I don't know. Yeah, I have
Yeah.
a championship. I'm sitting right on the table. So yeah, big wrestling fan. So with all that being said, all your awards, accomplishments, all the people you've been around, what's next for Coach Jon Butchko?
Well, I would really hope that God gives me the opportunity to become a head coach again. I do have my master's, and administration is probably something that makes a little bit of sense too. But I would like to have, a shot to be a head coach again. I certainly want to be involved in sports. I'm enjoying, one of the, I guess, unintended benefits of all this has been I've got to watch every one of my daughters' sporting events here for this year. But I hope what's next is to get back into coaching, to get back into, working with young people. And I think in kind of an odd way, I'm a little bit better footed now to be an example to young men on a situation that unfortunately, statistically, continues to find more and more young people, and on the greater statistical number, that being young men. And, take what I learned in that unfortunate situation, take, the lessons that are to be learned from going through something that was very heart-wrenching and, caused a lot of sleepless nights, and share that wisdom, with young people as I can.
Sure. As we near the end of the podcast, I want to say this year you have fought through adversity, just as has I. We both know what kind of people we are at heart. I want to thank you for what you've done for the coaching world. A lot of kids look up to you, and I know that because I've seen a bunch of these Edgewood players and players that you've been around, family, have already followed the podcast. So they're looking forward to hearing you. I want to thank you for all your hard work. To wrap things up, this one of the cool things I'm going to do. Underneath the coach sign to your far left, I'm going to have you sign the wall right underneath the coach. You'll be the first one ever,
Right.
First one ever in the studio, so go ahead and sign that wall under there for me. But once again, I thank you for being here. So as he signs the wall, yeah, go ahead and sign that bad boy. First one. Let me see where we're at here. To wrap things up, your first one to sign the wall, as I said, I'm going to have each coach sign the wall as they come through each podcast. Lastly, to end the show, I want you to tell me who Jon Butchko really is. For the people that might not know you, who is Jon Butchko?
Well, I think first, Jon Butchko, the person, is trying to be the best father, educator, best person I can be. Continuously striving to improve every area of my life, both professional and personal. I hope that I'm a person that gives of myself to people, and especially those that can't do for themselves. I hope I'm a great example for not only my family members, but the communities I live in as a whole. And as a coach, I think that I hope that I'm a prepared, knowledgeable professional at all times. I hope that I can continue to progress on the advanced things that we've done, whether it be analytics or throw the ball all the time or kick onside kicks, which is not always all that popular every time we're out there. But I would hope that I continue to take the lessons that I learned, as a young coach, from some statewide legends and continue to apply them and pay them back the best way that I can by paying it forward.
Absolutely. No, great answer. Once again, John, I thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So really, that's our show. Please tune in next week for episode 2. I'll be kicking it with Kahari Hicks. Thanks for everyone that's going to listen to today's show. Listen in next week, and see you later.
Welcome to The Coach's Approach, a podcast where we sit down with high school coaches and get the cold, hard facts
So, Pastor
about
did
the
that?
high school coaching world. This is The Coach's Approach, where we talk X's and O's. Follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. This is The Coach's Approach, where we talk the X's and O's. Win the day or dominate the day. The choice is yours.